Okay, so we are here for another installment of our Unbreakable Trader All In series. And I am joined this time around by the one and only Wall Street Jesus. Jay, say what's up to everybody.
Hello, everybody.
So I think at this point, everybody kind of knows the theme, the gist of this series, but we're really looking back at the markets from last year that broke a lot of traders and really left some people feeling pretty lost, pretty messed up, pretty in a place of searching for something to anchor them and to give them feel like they're back in a place of edge and a little more certainty going into this year. And also we're through that vein we're looking at psychological skill sets, so resilience and feeling like people can feel a little bit tougher, a little firmer in their stance as they go through things, while also being flexible, while being able to bend instead of break, if that makes sense. So, Jay, I just want to dive into it directly with you, right away.
Sure.
How would you describe what trading last year was like? What was the feeling? How is it different from normal years?
Well, yeah, I guess I've been in the game a decent amount of time already, right? What is it,
Right.
25 years, probably more than that. So, it's not necessarily wasn't any different than your normal bear market or corrective type market, corrective phase.
Mhm.
A lot different than the bull market off the COVID lows, and I think that's what created a lot of headaches, a lot of trouble, major trouble for some of the newer traders who never been a part of a bear market, right? They only
Mhm.
knew a market that went up and continued to go higher. Every dip was bought. So it kind of uh, it was an added wrinkle that they were just never seen before. So for me, to answer your question, for me, it's never exactly the same, but a lot of these bear market corrections resemble each other. It doesn't make
Mhm.
it that much easier to navigate in a sense, but to get through it, I think that's where the experience will help to get through it. As you mentioned just before you even asked the question, to build that tougher skin, right? You each and every one of these corrective cycles, you want to at the least take something away, learn something that you can correct in the future, right? And I
Mhm.
think we'll talk about this a little more, but that's the beauty of this market is it will undoubtedly make you aware of the things you have to correct or fix or
Mhm.
prevent doing to
Mhm.
find success and
Mhm.
consistency. Obviously, it's up to you to take the action and do the corrective, right?
Right.
So I think the most important thing, and that's the way I look at these things, is to if I make it through and kind of unscathed in the sense, right? You're still intact and you're able to take advantage of the better times. That's my goal.
Mhm.
That's the and again, we'll talk about this more, but I think a lot of people, a lot of newer traders, they try to force their way through it. They want
Mhm.
it, they want the same environment they were in during a time in the market where it's just impossible to find it. And that's where a lot of the trouble comes in. But to answer your question, it's similar to some of the other corrective phases we've been in. The details a little different,
Mhm.
but kind of gets the job done. What's needed. The reason why these corrective phases show up.
Right. So it sounds like you're saying that essentially this wasn't anything new to you, right? Just bear market correction. It was really rough for people who were coming out of COVID, and everything was so like those were kind of fat times in COVID. And now this, if that was your only sort of experience trading, this felt like pretty tough.
Well, let me put it, maybe I can phrase it even better, right?
Yeah.
So for somebody like myself or anybody who's got experience in the game, right? Who's been through these type of cycles in the market,
Right.
eventually you get to a point in your career where your main focus is your risk, right? Like
Mhm.
what every trade, every environment, no matter what, the first thing that comes to your mind, the first thing you acknowledge when you're looking to place a bet on anything is what can you lose, right?
Mhm.
And I
Yep.
think a lot of the newer traders that trade in just an up market where every dip gets bought and you don't necessarily lose much. They're always looking at how much can they make, right? And when you get into the environment that we were in 2022, that's a death cycle, right? If you're not managing your risk, if you're not paying attention to your risk in a market now that is making lower highs and lower lows, right? The total opposite of what we were seeing, you're destined to blow up. You're destined to blow up. So I think that's the most important thing and that's the main takeaway from these cycles, is that you always want, the first thing you want to control your risk. That's the only thing you can control in this game. And then everything else will take care of itself in a sense. But a lot of those newer traders, like you mentioned, in the market we were in, you really didn't necessarily need to pay attention to your risk, because you would even, mistakes, you would get bailed out from just the market being so bullish, right? And I'll give you an example. In the post-COVID rally, if you placed a bet, right, or you opened up a position in XYZ and you were losing money, you were down on it initially, okay, without taking that loss, right, and stopping yourself out, there was a good possibility in the type of bull market we were in that you would get bailed out. That loser would turn into a winner. And a lot of people got into the habit of, well, why would I, you almost felt like a sucker if you took a loss in that bull market, because if you held it a little longer, it would be profitable. Okay. Now you fast forward to 2022 and think how that frame of mind can bury you in a short amount of time. It doesn't take long, right? Yep. You do same approach. You buy XYZ in the bear market. You're down on it initially, and now you're hoping the market bails you out, and the total opposite happens, right? That loss turns into a bigger loss and a bigger loss, right? So that's what these corrections do. That's why they're quote unquote corrections. They correct sentiment when it gets a little too lopsided, a little too bullish, a little too easy. Nothing in this world, Charlie, is easy, no matter what it is, right? You can't. If it was that easy to make money in the market, everybody be doing it, and it'd be useless. Right. So, but it's just that frame of mind right there is where a lot of, especially these newer traders, they got lumped up, hoping the market would bail them out, and it didn't bail them out this go around.
Yeah. Yeah, I 100% hear that. I mean, I'm curious with, when you say it was really for you, last year was all about just like, making sure you control your risk and getting through it. Like, did you find that you were doing anything different when it comes to risk control? For maybe people who don't know as much about you, like, and how you trade, what were you doing? How were you managing your risk?
Well, it's again, that it comes with experience, right? So the more of these things you go through, the more prepared you become, the measures in certain measures you take. But I give you an example. With some of the stuff we look at in the steam room, as you know, positioning, sentiment, flow, they kind of made us aware that we were coming closer to a bearish environment at some point. Things were getting too bullish. Okay. Everybody was bullish. Everybody was getting long. Everybody was getting away with mistakes that they shouldn't get away with. And those are obviously some signs. They could be early, but that you're going to enter some sort of corrective phase. Okay. And now
you say you saw that started to happen in positioning, sentiment,
right? So I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example. Obviously, in the bull market of COVID, as strong as it was, I was swinging positions. I was holding overnight risk, right? I mean, you see the greater reward that way. Right. I stopped position trading and swing trading in October of 2021. That was the last swing trade. In other words, I didn't have any overnight risk beyond that October 2021 date. Okay. Right. So in preparation. Now, did I get out at the tippy top? Absolutely not. The market continued to rally through October, through November, into January, and then rolled over. Okay. But because of some of those early signs we were seeing, even though I was early, I was able to avoid getting caught with a bag or basket of long overnight exposure that may not necessarily have buried me, but would have taken a nice hickey off of. right?
Yeah. Yep.
So that's what I mean by preparation. A lot of people may look at it and they get out in October and the market continues higher and they're like, shit, what am I doing? I got to get back in, right? They look at the money they're missing on the upside as a problem, right? And that goes back to my earlier point. The first thing I'm looking at is what am I risking, right? As opposed to how much money I make. And it got me out earlier, and I'm okay with that in preparation to what was ahead. So, like, to give you an example, so in October, I was already kind of, as a lot of people in the steam room like to call it, bunker mode, right? So I was very conservative. I was a day trading only, no overnight risk. My head hit the pillow every night. I had nothing to worry about, waking up, seeing the futures crashing lower in the morning. So again, and the stress of it too, forget the money. The stress of it, I hope the market's not getting killed when I wake up in the morning. That itself is, it's a savior right there in a sense. The emotional capital, right? That's a big thing. Yep. So I did a lot of that, right? And going into 2022, I continued, nothing changed. I continued that ultra conservative, safe approach throughout the majority of the whole 2022 in a sense. Okay. So not holding any overnight risk through that bearish environment allowed me to preserve the majority of my capital and actually make a little bit of money. Now, there's downside to it, and I'm a perfect example of it because when the market bottomed in October, I still wasn't looking to be aggressive. You understand?
When it bottom in which October? Now
October of 2022, when the market, that was the low of the market. Okay.
Right.
So the market never made new lows from that point.
Right.
And I continued to remain conservative just because, again, we don't need to get into the reasons. This is not about that, but for things I look at, it wasn't a time to be aggressive. Even though the market may have hit a low and bottomed, the signals we were looking at was still showing us to remain more diligent and pay attention to risk more than opening up the spigots and try to get aggressive and make money. Okay. So there is downside to that. And a lot of new guys would look at that as downside, missing portions of the rally because you weren't aggressive. But that's not the way I look at it at this point in my career, right? Because the way I look at it is I probably have no money left if I change that approach earlier in that process. You understand? So what I'm trying to get through to you basically is there's no clean cut answer signs. Like I can't come on here and share with everybody out there, here's what you got to do. And you will never make money in a you will never lose money in a bear market. And as soon as it turns bullish, you will start making a boatload of money. There's no such thing, you know? But again, the thing, and this again, it's just going to come with experience, and everybody out there who's been in the game long enough knows exactly what I'm talking about. You reach a point in this game where what you have at risk means everything, and when you get to that point in your career, you're able to navigate these tough cycles a lot more smoother, right? You keep your pile of money, you keep your bankroll, and you have the ammo to fire when things get better. Without taking that approach, without having those measures, you're never going to have that money to fire when things improve. And it's important. You have to.
Pardon the brief interruption, but I just want to remind you that the final live Sang Lucci Master Course ever starts on March 25th. If you're ready to put in the work, we can make you into an unbreakable trader. You can learn more and get access to a bunch of free bonus content over at sanglucci.com/MC. And that link is in the description as well. All right, back to the video.
That's something you have to get a grasp on in this game to survive. I think it's the most important thing. Early on in my career, and we could talk about it if you want, that was my biggest hurdle, is that I was great making money when the market went up. I can make money just like anybody else out there. But every time, like you mentioned, you had a correction or a bear market, I would give all those profits back and then some every single time. And I felt like an idiot. I'm busting my ass trying to make money in every bull market, and then here comes a correction that takes it all from me in a matter of a month or two. So that again, going back to the point I mentioned to you earlier, the market told me early on what I needed to fix for me to hang around and find consistency. I needed to fix that, right? I couldn't last in this game giving back all my profits and then some every time the market had run into a correction.
So because I feel like a lot of people feel like the market is shouting a lesson at them to tell them to fix this thing, but for whatever reason, they can't internalize it. They can't make the change. What did you finally do to make that change and turn that corner? Do you remember what, like, was there a moment where you just said, I'm just so fucking tired of losing this?
That's
like, I'm done?
Exactly that. Like, listen, that's the problem. This is a form of gambling, right? And it goes to like gambling on horses, casinos, or ball games. Some people lose, right? Gamblers, they know they're going to lose, but it's almost like they like that feeling of losing. So they continue to be degenerates and gamble all their money away. And it applies to this market as well, just like you said. You're going to get to a point where you're frustrated. I was frustrated as hell. It irritated the shit out of me that every time, the market would go up for, let's say, 6 to 9 months, and then 1 month of a pullback would wipe it all out for me, right?
A lot of traders can relate to that.
Yeah. And it was it was, again, for me and some others, it's a lot easier, like it smacks you in the face. But if you are wired as a degenerate gambler, it's, like you mentioned, people just keep making the same mistakes and lose money continuously. But for me, it was pretty blatant. Like, listen, if you don't fix this, you're spinning your wheels. You forget about everything else. If you can't fix this, if you don't figure out a way to find a solution for this, everything else doesn't even matter. So don't even bother. So it was pretty obvious after giving back all my profits every single time. And it was early on in my career. I would say that it didn't take too long for that to be, something obvious to me.
Right.
And then what I realized, I think the next most important thing to actually take action on that was to not try and think that I was going to get out at the tippy top every time. Right. I think that's a problem everybody falls into. Yep. Well, maybe the market's going to go up one more week and I can milk that one last week. You know what I mean? Yep. And it's that FOMO, right? That's the FOMO. So for me, I acknowledge that, listen, I'm going to probably need to be early, right? In getting conservative and batten down the hatches. I'm going to need to a lot of times I'm going to be early and I'm going to miss upside. But think of it this way. Even if I miss some upside, right? Let's say even if 75% of the rally I was involved, for the next 25% of it, a nice chunk I missed, I'm still holding on to a huge chunk of that money I made in that bull market. You understand? And it's 10 times better than the approach that I was doing prior to that, where I would give back all that money and end up in the red.
Right.
So again, it just helped me understand and be okay with, all right, I might more than likely I'm going to run into times where I'm going to be sitting here weeks, maybe months. The market's going to be going higher. And don't get me wrong, I'm day trading. So I'm benefiting off the market going higher because I'm making money on an intraday basis. I'm just on a risk reward basis, right? The big reward is holding swing positions overnight. So I'm not participating in that, but I'm still participating. I'm not taking that added risk in order to prevent myself from being caught and getting hit over the head.
Yep. I mean, it sounds like you made a fundamental shift and you just said the thing that is going to guide my decision-making now is capital preservation, is risk management. That's, forget FOMO, forget what I can make, what I could do, blah, 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 blah. Number one priority, every decision, the first box that has to get checked is, am I engaging in capital preservation?
And again, I think it comes with experience too. It's because, look, when you first come into the game, right, especially options these days, the drawer is how much money you can make. You know what I mean? Oh shit, this option went up 2,000% in a month, or this guy made 40 grand in a week, right? So when you're young or you're new to the game, that's the allure, right? That's what draws you. But if you think of it just realistically, logically, anybody can do that. Okay, you can close your eyes, throw a dart at something, and in a bull market, it goes up. And that means nothing to the longevity of your career as a trader, right? Making a score or not. A lot has to do with luck and timing and all that. Has nothing to do with your skill set or anything like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you are looking to make a long-term career out of this game, you got to understand that it's all about the risk. It's all about the preservation of capital. And by paying attention to that, it will keep you in the game longer for all those other opportunities that rely more so on luck and timing. Accidentally, you will run into them. You know what I mean? You will run into them. But paying attention to your risk and your preservation of capital allows you to stay in the game long enough for those things to happen.
Yeah.
You know? So again, it's something that you learn, and everybody learns this. I'm nothing special, but you learn it through experience in this game, that anybody can make money. Anybody can make a score in this game. You just got to risk more and get a little lucky. But if you want to hang around in this game, right, and find consistency over that longer haul, your risk is the most important thing that you need to keep both eyes on at all times.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's funny the way that you're talking about it. It sounds so simple when you put it from the perspective of, if you want to have a career and you want to do this, of course, you have to make sure that the probabilities are in your favor and that you're managing your risk. But, it makes you realize that a lot of people, whether they're aware of it or not, are not actually thinking about this from the perspective of, I want to do this for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. If they were actually to get in touch with emotionally like what they want to make $1 million in a year and then go, go to an island or something like that. And it's like, is that realistic?
Well, it's fine if that's your mentality, if that's your outlook coming into the game. Like, listen, I want to roll the dice and I want to try to make a nice score and get the hell out. I'm not right, like you just said. Then again, there's no magic hidden science or secret sauce. You're going to have to take more risk. A bull market would help, right? So if you're doing it in a bull market, in all likelihood, you have a higher probability of making that score. But again, you cannot just continue to do that over the course of years, no matter what the market conditions may be, because that philosophy is destined to hit a brick wall. I mean, there's no question about it. There's nobody who's going to tell you that you rolling the dice looking for a score is going to survive the turbulence of market price action over years.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's no such thing. It's not going to happen. It's not just me saying it. It's a proven fact.
Right. It's just math. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I get it that, some of the newcomers to the game just want to make, they want to hit it big in a sense and retire or go, like you said, to their island, whatever. In all likelihood, they're not going to make enough money to buy their own island or retire. Right. And, they're going to probably want to hang around this game. But that whole approach is just, it's not going to happen. Yeah. It's not going to happen. So, but Charlie, the truth of it is this: if you approach, and this is, I'm not trying to badmouth anybody out, but this generation, just completely, you're talking about the generation of degenerate gamblers. Everything is a roll of the dice. You know what I mean? Yeah. Everything that I was taught and learned, that I learned early on in my career in this game, this generation of traders off the COVID lows do the complete opposite. You know what I mean? Huddle, right? Those initials for hold on to dear life. Right. That's like these are like the 10 commandments of what not to do, I learned. And they brag about it, right? YOLO, like what's YOLO stand for? What is that?
You only live once. Yeah.
Right. So it's all these cowboy
slap risk on the table.
Yeah. All these cowboy roll of the dice mentality. And it gets in your head. And listen, that trader with that frame of mind is not going to be around long. Okay. You may see them pounding their chest, making money, bragging about the money they're going to make. Trust me when I tell you, they will not be around a long time in this game with that type of mentality.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I hear that. And I think everything you're saying makes total sense. Right. And like, you think about, okay, what is the cost of pursuing a strategy like this? I feel like one of the costs is that you have to experience FOMO, and I know that you're Wall Street Jesus. I know you've been in the game for a long time. You've You've worked out a lot of the stuff that a lot of people still struggle with, but you still have to experience FOMO on some level, right? When you
Of
see
course.
people, I mean, so how do you manage that? What do you, you're on
I
Twitter, right? Like what,
Yeah, yeah. So the way I manage it, see, so this would be the easy solution, right? And this is what a lot of people try to do, an approach they try to get done, and they fail at it because it's so difficult to do, right?
Mhm.
They want to, so in other words, when you have a setup there that meets your criteria, or your signals are flashing green, and that's when you want to fire, be aggressive, and open up, right? Take some risk. And
Right.
then when your signals are flashing yellow, or whatever the case, a lot of people want to go into cash and not do anything. Okay. So it's one extreme or the other.
Mhm.
See, me, I know I'm wired as a degenerate gambler. I come from degenerate gambling blood. I
Right.
know it's in me.
Right.
So I know that I cannot just sit there and do nothing through a lengthy period of time. Like
Mhm.
you're saying, the FOMO, I'm going to have to participate in some fashion,
Mhm.
okay, based off the FOMO I'm feeling and just being bored and wanting to do something. Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
But what I've learned, what I've understood is that that's fine. As long as I'm doing it, understanding that the most important thing is what I'm risking.
Mhm.
When you understand,
Right.
if I'm sizing down and I have FOMO and I take a small shot and run into a loser, that's fine. That's not going to knock me out of the game. I'm going to be pissed off. I had FOMO. It's a
Right.
loser. I'm going to tell myself, well, I'm never doing that again and beat myself up. That's fine. But I'm still here. You understand?
Yeah.
But the last thing I want to do off that FOMO is have that YOLO mentality, right? And roll the dice in a big way and knock me out of the game. You
Right.
understand? So the point I'm making is I don't go to the total opposite extreme where, in all likelihood, the ideal thing would to be do nothing and sit and be patient and wait for the setup to improve.
Mhm.
Okay, that would be ideal. That's what I would like to do. But I'm honest with myself, knowing that I can't do that. I can't sit there patiently wait and do nothing while I'm allowing that to set up. So
Yep.
I have to participate, but as long as I'm participating in a small way where my risk really isn't, going to bury me and knock me out of the game, I'm fine with it.
And the thing that stops you from sizing up, from adding another zero to all of your orders, is just that emotional memory of like, it just doesn't fucking work for me. I'm not going back there. I'm not being that tired and that stressed and that frustrated again. Like, I just refuse to go back to putting on
Yeah.
a bunch of size in an environment that isn't my environment.
It's that, but I think I'm thinking, like, trying to think through other traders, the way they look at it, younger traders. You got to understand, a lot of people, like a lot of younger traders, they come to the game, they want to quit their job and they got bills out the ass that they have to pay. So they have to rely on the market to
Right.
make money.
Right.
And if you're in 2022 and you're relying on an X amount of dollars from trading, and I mean, there's just no way you're going to be able to do that in that type of market. And
Right.
that's where you add a couple zeros to your bet and bury yourself. You understand?
Yep.
So I think that more has a lot to do with it. People wanting that to make that big score. They want to, it's about that one trade where the right approach, if again, you're looking for longevity in this game, one trade means nothing. You understand? One trade is meaningless in the grand scheme of things. Whether you make a big score or you take a scratch, right? It means
Right.
nothing.
Yeah.
Because if your outlook and your goal is to be around in this game long enough and to hang around and find consistency in this game, it's about all the trades, right? Overall, net what things look like. Not that one trade. So people look to like that one trade is going to change their life or alter their life in a big way. And those are the guys who are chasing it, right? And forcing it. But if you're looking at the game through a different lens and saying, it's not about that one trade, it's about the overall big picture of things, right? There's no reason to add that extra zero when you shouldn't be.
Yeah.
There's no it does more harm than good. You understand?
Yep.
So it's an outlook on things in the game more so than I think FOMO or anything else. You got to understand, like, this is the difficult part with this game, and I think people don't talk about this enough. They try to pinpoint things, even psychologically, that apply to everybody. You understand? Like one size fits all, right? Like, if I think should be this, it should apply to every trader that's listening right now. But this game is not that clean cut and easy. You know, people have different risks, different goals, different time horizons, different emotions and psychological makeups. Everybody is so different in this game. So it comes down learning about you and what you want to do more so than what anybody else is telling you to do. You know, there are people who could give you advice if you share with them how you're looking on things through experience. But again, to listen to a one-size-fits-all kind of, here's a checklist, you're good now, it's just no such thing.
You can learn a skill set like tape reading or how to, what flow means, the orders to look for and stuff like that. But the way that you apply it, the way that you use it is going to completely vary depending on a number of different factors. And when you're totally right. We have the data to prove that. Every time we do a master course, we do a live session of the master course, we ask people coming in, what's most important to people, stuff like that. And then on the way out, we ask them what's impacted you, what's been the most important thing for you. And, they learn from you. They learn from Lucci. They learn from Chris and me and trading psychology stuff. They learn from Ranch, of course. There's tons of information that people get, presented to them. And everybody, it's not a completely different conclusion for every single person, but there's a lot of different things that people identify and they say, this is my thing. And they're all right, because they're all saying, for me, the thing that matters the most is, the way that Lucci was talking about, timing his entries with tape on this, in this kind of
on intraday time frame or stuff like that. But think of it logically. Logically, you may not be in front of the screen as much as myself or Lucci is throughout the day. So, finding entries off tape or sweeper activity for scalps, they're intraday, is completely meaningless and useless to you if you're just swing trading or investing on the side type of thing. You understand? So you're 100% right. And I think that's what we try to do. And honestly, it's an easier sell when you pretend you have a product that is clean cut and applies to everybody. Listen, everybody come in here and you could just buy this and make money and sell this here and that, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And that would be easy if there was such thing, right? That would be a beautiful thing and an easy sell. But I think what we try to do different in the room is that, all right, here's the intel, here's the experience, here's the knowledge. And what you need to do is take from it what applies to you, right? The way you're looking to tackle this game and use it efficiently, okay? Not mirror what anybody else is doing, okay? But taking the information that would apply to you where you can find an edge off of it and learning how to implement it efficiently.
Yep.
So, and that's what we try to do. Again, I think we would probably be a lot easier sell if we took a different approach. But people would come and expect unicorns and rainbows and learn the hard way. There's no such thing.
Exactly. I mean, it's fascinating to hear you talk about all this stuff because, again, when I do these interviews with you guys, your guys' inherent perspective is so visible to me when I talk to you guys about it. And for you, like, you use a lot of language related to trading that is similar to gambling. That's like the same language, or sorry, not gambling, addiction. And when I went through, graduate school for psychology and stuff like that, we learned a lot about, this method for treating addiction, which is called harm reduction, right? Which is basically what you were just talking about. Like, instead of the idea is if somebody is, let's say, addicted to heroin, don't have them go out. You can't tell them quit cold turkey because they're not gonna be able to do that. Don't just send them out in the street and have them buy a bunch of horrible drugs or whatever. Have them, you can reduce the harm by having them go to a place where they can get it in a clean way that's safe. And if they can do it, if they talk to a therapist when they do it, then you can
and
make
slowly
progress
come
that
off
way.
of it. It's more of a process than boom, clean cut, come
Exactly.
off, right? Yeah.
And it's like the inherent perspective in that is, we know this person's going to do this thing. Let's like look reality in the face and let's just find a way to do it safely and with as little harm as possible. That's like exactly what you were talking about with sizing down. You were just like, I know I'm going to do this thing. I'm not going to risk, the whole boat. When I do it, I'm going to make sure I do it in a way that's safe. And obviously that's why you've been here for as long as you have, and you figure that out.
It's being real with yourself. If you're gonna lie to yourself, right, and pretend like you can do things a certain way, and you can't. Obviously, you're not going to find success. But you try to, again, you're kind of dealing with the hand that you were dealt, and trying to make that work, right? So if I know that the bulk of my money I'm going to make as a trader is when off the ideal environment, ideal setup. That's when I want to take the most amount of risk, be the most aggressive. Okay. When I'm not in that environment, I know damn well I can't just sit and watch everybody else play and do nothing. Okay. I can't. Maybe you could. Maybe some other people could go walk their dog or go on vacation, right? But
walk one of their 9 dogs, know.
Yeah. I know even if I'm walking the fucking dog or if I'm on vacation, I'm going to stop on my phone or computer and probably look to play something. Okay. But you
don't even go on vacation. I've worked with you for like 9 years at this point. You've taken I don't think you've ever taken a vacation.
Well, now, then. That's funny because you and guys in the room, Lucci and all that, say the same. You guys, you met me post my prime type thing. You understand? When I was a young gun, you couldn't find me. Now, I'm kind of worn out.
I feel that.
Anyway, so it's to your point, right? To the addiction point you were making.
Yeah.
If you can limit your damage, right, and you're still filling that need, and more importantly, hanging around for the better times.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that? Right? There's nothing wrong with that. It still gets the job done. So again, being honest with yourself in this game, I think, is really important.
And you found the way to look at things to make it work for you. Like Chris Cady, I do an interview with him. He brings in Buddhist philosophy and stuff like that, and he sees every trade as like life and death, rebirth, an opportunity for rebirth, right? You guys are both right. It's fascinating. You're both right.
There's no wrong. Yeah.
There's no wrong. It's just you found the way to make sense of all this, and that's what we obviously help people do in the course, is find your way to make this all make sense and work for you, in a philosophy that works for you. So, yeah.
And listen, a lot of us approach this game. It's funny because I come from a generation in this game where if you called it gambling, you would piss people off. Stock market.
Oh, still do. Yeah, that will piss people off for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's investing. It's not gambling. But, now, I mean, you can't even make the argument. You got people slinging options, call, weekly, 0 DTE. I mean, that's straight up gambling, right? So that's fine. You got to understand, right? If that's what you're actually doing, the most important thing, more important than anything else, right, is money management, right? Managing that bankroll and having more winners than losers, right? More wins than losses, plain and simple. If you have, let's say, whatever it may be, 6 out of 10 plays on an average, you have a profitable trade. You have to organize your bankroll and your risk reward strategy sufficient enough to take advantage of that. You understand? If you go out and just pick that one stock and roll the dice and it happens to be a loser, you could have 8 winners out of the 10 and still end up broke, right?
Right.
And the point I'm getting at is to your point, where I know people who have a low hit ratio. Okay. They hit maybe 4 out of 10 stocks, but they're looking for outsized winners. You understand? Their winners are a lot bigger than some of ours. Okay. So that's their strategy. Who am I to tell them they're wrong? Right? It works for them. They manage they bankroll it according to the way they need to manage it to find success. If it works for them, they're just as right as anybody else who's in this game and finding consistency. You understand? So it's just, again, being honest with yourself, knowing what you're capable of doing, right? And organizing a strategy around that to find success. If you can't do that, then I mean, ultimately, and that's what you were saying earlier, people are just going to keep running into that wall. No matter it doesn't matter what stock picking service you have, there's anything. Nothing else matters more than that strategy and that risk management. Nothing.
Yeah. I hear that. Okay. One of the things I want to ask you about is in terms of traders who are really looking to level up in their trading and make progress. And, I'm not talking about somebody like you who's at your stage in your career you have so many hours and behind the screens and, so much of your understanding of the markets is just, it's happening in the background now, right? Like you can predict things that are going to happen just because you've seen everything that can happen. But for somebody, let's say, who's like, they've been trading for like a year, they haven't found consistent profitability or anything yet, but they know that this is something they're passionate about. They're committed. They really want to level up. We named one of the reasons why we named this series the Unbreakable Trader All In series, because it's our last master course. So we're kind of going all in with it, right? We're like really pulling out all the stops. We're adding new pieces to it and everything like that. But in part, it's also because like we want to be there and support some of the people who are like, I'm going all in on trading this year. We talked to a number of people who are just like, I'm tired of kind of not achieving my goals. I want to go all in and do everything it takes in order to, level up and make progress in my trading.
Right.
I feel like there's kind of two ways that people approach this. Some people are like, I'm just going to like chip away at things. I'm going to do like a half hour, an hour of sort of studying the markets and everything outside of market hours. I'm just going to kind of go at this like slow and steady pace and it'll get there over time. And then there are people who are just like, no, I'm like diving full into this thing. This is going to be my number one priority across the board. Kind of a bunch of other things in my life are going to get put on hold so that I can focus in on this and do this. Do you think that people have to be all in, if you're at that period in your career where you're kind of new and you're really looking to like break through that threshold, you really have to just envelop yourself in it, or is that not necessary? I mean,
I think I mean, most things in life, I think, unless you really get lucky and step in shit, you probably have to have that all in mentality, put all your focus, energy, really want it, and put everything you can into it. You got to have that determination to get, any success in life, I think, anyway. But yeah, I think a lot of people give up too early in this game because of that frustration you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Either they're tired of spinning their wheels, right? They're not blowing themselves up, but they're not making much money out of it, right? Mm-hmm. So they know like this is not something that is going to last, and they won't, they can't quit their job, or they can't, right? That's their ultimate goal. So they give up on it, or they open up and roll the dice and hope that works. And when it doesn't, then they're out of the game. I think a lot of traders get to that scratch point in their career, right? I think you get to a point after a few years where if you start correcting mistakes, you hover around that break-even mark, and it becomes a frustrating time. And what I would say about that is, if you are there in particular, I think that is a time especially where you should do that, get that all-in mentality. And because you're probably one little thing away from tilting your scratch trading from being a profitable strategy for you, And the reason why I say that, like early on, again, like most traders, same thing for me. I found a way not to blow up, but at the same time, I was spinning my wheels. I would make a little bit of money, and it just wasn't enough. It really wasn't enough. It was a waste of time in a sense. Okay.
Yeah.
And I could have just closed my eyes and walked away, or open up, roll the dice, and take a shot, try to get the easy way, whatever. But to your point, I continue to look for maybe there's something new that I can add or to my strategy, something that I learn about that I'm not aware of. And that's when like kind of all of it, sentiment, positioning, and sweeper activity really became a part of my style. You know, that's what really tilted what I was doing already from being a scratch trader to now I have the confidence to that I can find success over the long haul and it's
Right.
worth my while. You
Right.
understand? And it could be, again, could be tape reading was for Lucci, right? He'll tell you it's tape reading.
Yep.
Ron Carroll could tell you something different. But I find a lot of people that do find success in this game, ultimately, that's how it evolves. You end up getting and plateauing around being a scratch trader. And then instead of getting frustrated, now that you're on that island, you should look at it as an accomplishment, I think, right? Because you really covered the risk part. You got that down part. Now you're looking for that edge to make money. And I think that's where something like the master course and even the steam room in general could be most beneficial to a lot of people out there, right? The people that say, all right, listen, I get it. I got to manage my bankroll. I got to do this. I got to do that. But I'm still having a tough time making money. That's where a lot of the stuff you'll learn, I think, in the master course can possibly have a light bulb go off, something that you can implement into your strategy and you start to see the light, you start to see the difference. And, again, it could be from what I look at, it could be from what Lucci looks at. And that's where learning things from others in this game comes to be a real advantage, because for you to learn that on your own, just through experience, like you said, takes a long time, right?
Long time,
I mean, stuff I've learned over my career, you're talking about 25 years, right? It'd be a lot easier if I was around somebody else who had that experience and, maybe 5 other things that in his approach is completely useless to me. But that one little thing I learned from that person or people, I could apply and made that much of a difference in my strategy. So to answer your question, and I think that's what basically you were getting at, is I think for me, I would rather take the approach to where, kind of like you said, all right, I'm going to buckle down. This is going to be a year. I'm going to really pay attention to things. You know what I mean? I'm going to be into it. I'm going to try to learn new things, see what fits me, see what I can implement in my strategy, and kind of, go about it, not in a rush, but something you want to accomplish in the short term, rather than saying, I got to be around for 10 years and I got to learn along the way, right? Is that kind of what you're asking?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, that's super, super helpful. I mean, I think that you hit the nail on the head. Like, there's so many people who come in and they really, some people need an overhaul in their trading. Some people have no idea what they're doing and they really do need every single piece of what we teach them. But a lot of people, they just need one kind of little skill set, one little building block, one little tweak in how they're looking at things to help them turn that corner to, being able to become consistently profitable rather than, staying at scratch. So,
yeah. And, you got to listen, at the same time, it's a lot relies on that individual too. You got to have an open mind, right? You can't be closed-minded. You can't be stubborn. You got to be willing to learn. You got to be willing to apply the stuff you learn without seeing just instant gratification, instant results. You got to be patient with it. You got to get comfortable with it. But the process, it really shortens the learning curve, I think, if you take the approach you mentioned, as opposed to, I'm just, because it's a lot easier said than done. I'm just going to hang around and over the next decade, I'm going to learn enough to be where I want to be. Nobody wants to do that, right?
Most people don't have that staying power. I mean, shout out to anybody who does, but most people don't have that. Yeah.
And worst comes to worst. I mean, I think you could have both at the same time. You can, if you really want to put your foot down, you really want to go to work and take a year of your life to try to tackle this game and learn as much as you can and apply some things that you feel comfortable with and see if it works. You can do that, possibly learn something new and be on that path to where you can be in this game over the next 10 years. And everything you learn will be a bonus on top of what you've learned already, So I think you could have both, but I really think you need the determination to to want it, right? You need to, again, it's with everything in life, right? If you really want something and you're really determined to go after it and do the things you need to do to get there, more than likely, you got a good shot of getting there. But if you don't have that determination and you have more of a lax attitude towards things, it becomes really difficult.
Yeah. That's a very good place to stop, Jay. I appreciate you doing this. To all you watching,
My pleasure.
Jay is obviously a huge part of everything we do here. You can learn directly from him in the master course, along with Lucci and Chris and Ranch. So you can learn everything that Jay does, by the most efficient way possible. Do that is definitely sign up for the master course. So, Jay, appreciate you doing this, man. We'll talk.
I can talk shop anytime. You know that. I enjoy it.
Thanks, Jack.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah.